4.05, this is the E-rate Form 471 Time Warner contract. Ms. Probst, Dr. Probst, excuse me.
It's okay. Good evening. At this time, we would like you to consider approving the contract for our connectivity. We went out for bid in November, filing the 470 with E-rate. We had two companies who actually submitted bids. One was Broadplex, the other was Time Warner. The Broadplex bid came in at $45,895 per month, the Time Warner at $42,600 a month. The good news is the lower bid Time Warner is actually about $6,000 less a month than what we had previously paid back on the contract in 2012, which will give us a nice savings of about $60,000 a year. So at this time, the reason I'm bringing this so early, the contract's not ending until June 30th, but I have to file the 471 with E-rate by the beginning of March, and I'm basically saying this is the company that we want to go with. And so that I'm not saying it, you are, we are bringing it to you to go ahead and approve, and we might as well sign the contract at the same time.
Board members, any questions on this?
Just that in the interim between now and June, our decision tonight will stick. It'll be...
Oh, absolutely. We've been working with Time Warner, and they're absolutely fine with getting an early contract, but we will still be on the 2012 contract until June 30th.
Okay. As long as there's stability between now and then.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Phillips? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. The number that we're looking at, the 42.6, that is with the 60% reimbursement, or is that before the reimbursement?
That is before the reimbursement.
So we are only paying...
But you need to realize what we do is we have good accounting practices, and we actually pay the bill and then ask to be reimbursed. It's wrong to say, oh, we might get a check, and then something happen and it not come in.
Okay, but for our consideration, we get reimbursed, 60% of that comes back.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. And the other question I had on the list of schools, you had the two preschools. Did they need the same speed as everyone else, or is that just comes with it?
No, actually, in our current contract, where you had confusion was in 2012, we did not have the Lockhart Center, which we just added that. And that does have a 1 gig, the same as what we have at the other sites. And then we also opened up the pipe up to MCNC and went to a 4 gig. So that increased the pricing after the 2012. In the current contract, what we're asking for on our way in is to open up the high schools to a 2 gig with all the blended learning. So we priced out 1 gig at the elementary and middle and 2 gig at the high schools.
Okay, it just looked like two of the high schools were not. I think it's Mount Pleasant didn't have the 2 gigs. Is that right, or is that?
That is a really interesting piece on that. We're going to light up some dark fiber that's been just hanging out there for about 5-6 years, and we actually are going to end up, if we can pull this off by June, not having to pay a fee for the Education Center or Mount Pleasant High School. So that's going to be a nice feature if we can make that happen, and I think we can.
Well, thank you for you and your team on that one. That's all I had.
Yeah, tell us what those savings are at some point.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Phillips?
First of all, I was going to ask you another question. That you said 2 gig, and it's like, wow, that's like twice Google Fiber, right? Isn't Google Fiber just 1 gig?
Let me just say, everybody keeps saying, is Google Fiber coming here? And I have absolutely no idea. It would be whether you wanted to bring it, but I don't think so. I don't know whether Cabarrus County's going there.
Along those lines. So I see the total amount here is about $1.5 million. So is this a 3-year contract?
It's a 3-year, and the reason I put it on the budget, it said, how much would we have to say? It's $1.5 million for 3 years.
Okay.
But remember, we get reimbursed 60%.
Yes, no, I understand that. And is that rate per month? Does it have an inflation adder each year, or is that
No, it's a
fixed
flat
amount?
fee for 3 months. And somebody asked me, they said, why don't we go to a 5-year contract? The problem is the technologies keep changing and the prices are going down, so you don't want to lock in too far out.
Right.
And then you just don't want to constantly have, going through the 470 bidding process is really taxing. You don't want to keep doing that every year.
Okay. Well, I think 3 years is the right amount of time. We can hope that Google Fiber will come all the way up to Cabarrus County. I think our elected officials should lobby for that, as should our school superintendents. But they won't be ready for the next 3 years, I don't think. So this will carry us through till there's some more competition.
Well, and I think one of the reasons we got lower pricing was when Broadplex came in, and I had to have open meetings, and they sat in the same room, and they were looking at each other. There's competition out there.
I will say that Ms. Probst, Dr. Probst was breathing a sigh of relief because Broadplex is from Arizona.
That's actually a phone company. Broadplex is actually in North Carolina.
Okay.
They're the ones Union County moved over from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was, maybe I've got confused. Then.
Yeah, that's the next
one.
that's
That's the
the
next
next
one.
one.
Okay, so on the consent agenda, board members? All right, next,
Thank you.
4.06. Dr. Probst, it's you again.
At the same time, we filed the 470 for telecommunications. Our phone contract is up at the end of June. This one was rather interesting. When you file the 470, it's just not going to your local bidding. It goes all across the nation, and vendors from all over the country started saying, we want to bid on your phone system. When I tell you that we had companies come in from South Carolina and then actually somebody come in from Arizona that wanted to bid on our phones, we have to give them tours of the schools, we have to give them access to all the data, we have to legally post and answer any question because somebody could say that you're not being open with them. It was very taxing for about 28 days until we got to December 3rd and we could go ahead and take bids. I was really worried that we were going to have to deal with a company that had never worked in North Carolina and they might come in pricing it really low. When it came to the final bids, we only had one who decided to submit a bid, and that was Windstream, our current vendor. Pricing was far less than what we had seen in the past, and one of the reasons is because the technology is changing, and we were able to condense some of those trunk lines and pull them together, which really brought the pricing down. The good news is we're going to save about $7,000 a month on the phone bill. The bad news is that E-rate is going away for phone systems. We have a 2-year warning. Last year we got reimbursed at 60%. In 15-16 we get reimbursed at 40%. The following year 20%, and then nothing. And so all those savings that we have, really when you take the 20% loss, we're basically netting about the same thing that we paid last year.
Board members?
So how many
Dr.
years
Harrison.
is this contract?
This is a 3-year contract.
Would it be more prudent to have a 2-year contract with those E-rate percentage changes each year so that we would have some wiggle room?
No, actually, I kind of like the 3-year, and I like the fact that I still have E-rate for 3 years. When it comes to E-rate, pricing is a variable. As long as on the rubric I can show that it is the largest variable, so like I could say pricing is 40%, but all the other variables are 60%, but one's 10%, one's 15%, one's 20%. I don't always have to go with the lowest bid. What scares me in 3 years is when E-rate's not there, and Kelly and I are coming to you using your rules, and we're looking at the lowest bid, and somebody comes in from Arizona, we're going to have issues. We are very, very happy with our vendor. Windstream has been very good to us. We have very little downtime. We have a guy on staff now that actually worked for Windstream, and it's a seamless operation.
Mr. Walter?
The company that took over the Windstream building, ACN, were they one of the companies that?
No, ACN is not. No.
Okay,
They took the building over, but not the same type of company.
And I think you told me how many phones that was, this contract covers?
Oh, shoot, I sent it to you last night. What was it,
It's like
4,205
something.
phones?
That's like $3 a phone per month. I
It-
think that's a pretty good deal, even if we had to pay for it. So.
I think that's what it was, 4,205.
Consent agenda, board members? All right, put it on the consent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Probst.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to 4.08. And this is, let's see, that was at the bottom of this page. Mr. Taylor,
Good evening.
come on down.
How are you? This evening, my agenda item is the approval of consultants for the roofing projects that were approved by the Board of Commissioners for the mediation process. And if you will allow me and indulge me, I would like to let you know a little bit about the process that we went through and some changes that I want to make to how we're going to handle this. Once I was notified that we've had the money and we were going to be able to go forward with the 3 projects, and that would be Rocky River Elementary, Weinkauf Elementary, and Northwest Middle, I got together with your team at the maintenance, and we discussed this, and we sought out information from several different contractors in the area. What we did is we stepped back to take a look at how we could best do this project and how we could get the absolute most dollars and put them to work in the best possible fashion. What we came up with is that if we take a look at the project as designed and rescope it, we may be able to stretch the dollars and possibly do more than just the 3 roofs. And what we would like to propose to you, and our idea, is that we want to rescope, and instead of doing the invasive upgrades and modifications, bringing it to current code, if we go back and just do a simple re-roof, making it safe, warm, and dry, we believe that once we bid this out, we will be able to have enough money to do possibly an additional roof. Originally, you had requested monies for 5 roofs for this year. What we're trying to do is stretch these dollars in a reasonable fashion to get the most out of your money. We talked to several contractors, as I stated. We also sought counsel from your board attorney, Mr. Ken Michaels. I've had several discussions with him on this. He helped us come up with the documentation for the RFQ, redesigning it. We went out, resubmitted for the request for qualifications, and that's what I'll be presenting to you shortly. We think it's imperative that we try to stretch these dollars, make the best use of it, and fix as many roofs as possible. We can go after the extras later. Right now, we just need safe, warm, dry schools. So, in the process, we had several very good, reputable firms that put in their requests for qualifications to let us know that they were interested. I picked 2. I then sat down with my staff. We went over them, reviewed the qualifications, and we came up with the fact that we wanted to go with not just 1, but 2 because of the 2 different type roofs. We have single membrane roofs we're trying to repair and replace. We also have a metal roof, which is for Northwest Middle School. So at this time, I would like your approval to move with the consultants of Butte PLLC for the single membranes, and also metal roof contractors for the metal roof at Northwest Middle. The reason we selected these is we feel that Mr. Butte's personal service, he's a little bit smaller company, and we've worked with him in the past. He's done an excellent job for us. But we feel like he will be able to help us with the time constraints we have. We have a very tight time constraint trying to get these completed by fiscal year end. Now, the metal roof, we already know it will not be completed by fiscal year end. Logistically, it's just not possible. The lead times for the materials and the design work will put us out to possibly the opening of school next year. However, the single membrane roofs, we feel very confident we'll be able to finish by the end of fiscal year. At this time, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Board members, I know that all of you are specialists on roofs, but I'm sure that you'll need to defer to Mr. Taylor for his expertise. But anyone have any questions that they would like to bring up at this time? Dr. Shepard did tell me that Mr. Downs is aware that we would like to stretch these dollars, and we could possibly get 4, maybe 5 roofs out of this process if it works out to our advantage.
And
So,
are we at
Mr.
a
Harrison?
point yet of identifying the candidate or candidates for the 4th roof?
Yes, sir. We're going to stay in keeping with the original request. So number 4 will be J.M. Robinson High School, excuse me. And then number 5 will be Mount Pleasant High School, which are the 5 that we had planned for this year. So that would put us back on schedule with our roof repairs.
And would those roof repairs be the entire 100% of the surface of the roof or patches of each of these roofs?
Sir,
What
we're planning on doing complete replacement of the membranes
Of all 5?
as far as we can stretch those dollars.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes.
won't promise you all 5 right now.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Walter?
So our budget for these 3, or what is our budget at the moment?
The budget was 4.2.
4.2, so 10% would be the design cost, is that what you're looking at?
Yes, sir. That's what we use. I don't believe it'll actually come in at that, but I wanted to have a number that was reasonable and that I would not exceed.
Sounds reasonable to me, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Phillips?
Right, so if I understand it, what you're proposing to do is a replacement in kind. We'll just, whatever is there now, that's what we're going to put there again?
No, sir.
No.
Not in the case of Northwest Middle. Now, right now, you have a shingled roof we're going to replace with a metal roof.
Okay,
The other schools have a EPDM ballasted roof. That's the rubber with the rock on top of it.
right.
We're going to replace that with either a TPO or some type of single membrane such as PVC.
Okay, so we won't have the rock on
No,
top of the
sir.
membrane, so if somebody goes up and walks on the roof, we won't get the membrane punctured. Because that was my concern, is if, we know the current design at Weinkauf, and apparently at Rocky River as well, doesn't last 20 years that we hoped it would. So
Yes, sir.
I don't want us to put that on there again.
And that was my question when they first talked about stretching these dollars from 3 to 4. I said, I'd rather do 3 and get 3 right than to try to stretch it, and they've assured me of the quality.
Okay. Well, then, thank you for answering my questions.
Yes, sir.
And Butte did the roof replacement over at Royal Oaks on the new building, and that was
Yes, sir,
all
he
single
did.
membrane replacement at that point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think it would be possible to bring back the contracts to us by next meeting on business, our next business meeting, which is next Monday?
It's possible. I would like to think that we can. I don't think I can commit to that right now. But I believe it's very possible.
So, board members, could we put this on the action agenda just to give him opportunity to
Yes, sir.
give us more
Absolutely.
precise dollars? And
If you give me the go-ahead, which is what I'm hoping for tonight, your maintenance team is going to start immediately tomorrow to execute this and make it happen.
all right, so you'll work with these 2 contractors tomorrow during the week, and hopefully you'll have a report back for us on next Monday, and then we'll take action one way or the other by next Monday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So you have consensus that we can move forward with these 2?
That's, I seem to see thumbs up. Yes. All right. Now we bring up Mr. Burnett, the Royal Oaks Elementary replacement.
Well, thank you, and I do expect that you all will have some questions. I do expect that there's going to be a discussion involved, so I'll just keep a presentation brief, and then feel free to go ahead and I'll try to answer your questions as best I can. Superintendent is recommending the Royal Oaks Elementary School Replacement Facility be located on the current site, and that it would have a program of 400 student core capacity, and that it would utilize the Odell project design team and prototype. The rationale for many of those, well, first let me say that really we're looking for three outcomes, three decisions, and that is the site, the program, and the design team. The time frame is tight, and that we do have to be very mindful of that. The county is wanting the project designed, bid, awarded, and encumbered next year at this time. So really, at this school board meeting next year, we hope that would be the latest time that we would be bringing bids to you, just in case there's something that comes up that we need to negotiate with the contractor. They have to hold their, we may ask them to hold their bid. You may remember for Odell, we asked them to hold their pricing for 80 days. Well, we really don't have 80 days from this time next year. So really, that would have to count on things going nice and smoothly, and that the design and the construction bids come in at the budget, and it's nice and clean. The program right now, we're looking at 400 students, and there's a question that said, is that 400 students, the core capacity, is the dining the same size as Odell? Is the media center the same size as Odell? Those types of things. And the answer is no. It was scaled back. The core capacity was 400 students, so that's a dining capacity for 400. That's a media center. Those type of spaces were scaled down for a 400 student core. The site, we have shown internally where we can put a new school on the Odell School site, and not interfere with the existing school. That's one option. So the good thing is that we know we have a school that can fit on there. What we want to see is what the interest is, and the final product. We can try to incorporate the existing classroom wing that's on the Royal Oaks campus, and that it's actually the structure that was just talked about with the new roof. We can either have that be a standalone building and not associated with the new school, or we could incorporate it into the new school, and it could be one of the classroom wings. Now, just depending on how the interest on that is, it has a great impact on how it's designed, the scheduling, sequencing of the work, phasing of the work, because we really would, if we are going to connect that wing to the new school and have it be part of the school, we really will impact the existing school a great deal. We would have to, on our end, we'd have to study what the effect of that's going to be, how we can work around that, what we think the solutions are. And that might include having a mobile village either on that campus, or maybe we look at adding other campus. Again, we have to see, we will study it once we get the design team on board, set up, and then we'll go through those options. The other item is the design team. So we've gone through a great deal of effort on the Odell school design. Last year, well, probably 14 months ago, there was a great deal of effort on the architect selection. We did an RFQ. We reviewed a great many qualifications, submissions. The architectural team that was selected from that process was Mosley Architects. We feel that the design effort that's underway and completed, actually for Odell, was successful. We feel we have a very energy efficient design that will be saving taxpayers money for the life of this facility. We do feel that it meets the program, that it provides a great educational environment for the students. we'd like to just continue on with that. General statute does allow the board to select a prototype, and in this case, that would be the Odell prototype, and forego the architect selection process and announcement. That would save us time, because the time on this project is such that, again, if we're going to be standing before you next year at this time, or maybe even January, we really have to be moving. We've got to get surveys on that property. We have to get geotechnical work on that property. We have to do phase one. We have to get the information ready so the design team can then start the work. If they're waiting on us, that is time that's sorely lost, and will be very tough to make up, because really we're looking at really needing to complete that design probably in the October time frame. We have to have agency reviews, go through that process, need to respond to that, go out to bid. The Christmas holidays are certainly going to impact that, and certainly hurt the schedule. So, we may be able to go out to bid in mid-December and receive bids in mid to late January, or ideally, we'd be earlier than that, just so that we have more time on the back end. Are there any questions?
All right, board members, you heard Mr. Burnett's presentation. Mr. Furr, you may be first.
Wow. I mean, I beat David and Rob? Never mind.
This time.
Yeah, this time. Yeah. No, my question, if we do the same architectural design as Odell, what kind of money cost savings is that? Do you know?
Well, you already benefited from the Odell prototype,
Right.
Because we used the prototype.
Yep.
So you really can't do savings from a prototype because at some point they're going to be paying you, and we know that's not going to happen.
That's a good deal.
So really, I mean, we will negotiate the best we can,
Okay.
and what we do expect is that for this site, we have to look at this sequencing of the work and where that 1998 classroom wing is key as to what we can do and what we can't, and how we have to approach things, and how things are split out as far as the sequencing. So that's an unknown at this point.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask. I guess you're waiting, or you're wanting to know from the board whether they want to try to use that wing, or are you going to bring numbers to us with advantages or disadvantages financially?
That can be a product of the design team effort, where we look at it. But if the school board says we want to have a program that utilizes that building as a standalone building, well, we know the deal. Then we know what the marching orders are.
Okay. Anyone else? Carolyn Carpenter?
Okay, because I know there was some things discussed at the retreat talking about using Long as a storage facility, possibly, since of the age, using that and possibly moving students that are at Long to possibly Royal Oaks, where the freestanding, that could utilize for those students possibly, where it being freestanding could be used as a kindergarten, where then building the building would be a possibility. Also, does DPI not have canned buildings that we can just get from them?
Well, this prototype is one that's on the school clearinghouse website. So you've already got one. But there are many that are on the school clearinghouse website. But there really is no such thing as a canned school. Design effort has to occur on every single project. We have to site adapt it. You have to look at the program and match it to yours. There's the energy codes, the seismic codes. All those things change, and they change frequently. And some of those plans have been up there, I know, since 1994, and really, a thorough, brand new, code review would have to be undertaken on that, and there's many examples of that.
But I mean, but they do have some
They do, yes.
that, I mean, because you're talking speed. But I mean, one of the big decisions, we wouldn't have to go out, if we use the site, we wouldn't have to spend the time to go find land, which it
correct.
took us how long and to try to find Odell to come back to say, gee, well, let's go ahead and use the site we've got. We spent almost 2 years coming to that conclusion that land was not going to be found. Well, that's going to cut time in half, not having to go through that process to say, okay, we're going to use that. All right, that cuts that time down. So to say, yeah, we're going to do that. But, I mean, if we use the other as storage space and use that other as a kindergarten for those, that would eliminate that, where we can focus on the other to say, yeah, use that. I mean, but that was one thing that was mentioned at the retreat, to possibly move the kindergarten to the Royal Lake site, and that's one thing the building could be utilized for.
Yeah,
I think he's got something to say.
Mr. Powell?
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter and Ms. Shoemaker. What's the ballpark for construction costs? What are we estimating for this? Is it 17.1 or something like?
Obviously, it all depends on what it is what we program, and what we do as far as the building, and whether it's standalone facility or not. So I think that there was a number. I think we had it at the retreat. There's a yellow sheet, and for this particular program, it was 17.2 million, and that, as Ms. Carpenter had pointed out, it's very early in this process, or there's a lot of things that are unknown, I should say that. And so we did have construction contingency, which we want every time. We had estimated contingency, and we had some design contingency on the program. So those were things that as we get answers, as we define items, some of those contingencies narrow, and some of them then go away.
Did that answer your question? Do you need some more?
It did. I'm trying to think back if we had an estimate for 800 student building as well. I know that maybe that's not the same discussion, I guess, but
What was the Odell before we went to a 3.5? How much more expensive was that? Because that would have been an 800-student school.
Right. That was an 800-student school with 1,000-student core capacity. If I remember right, I think we calculated a savings of $700,000 or $800,000 for not doing the kindergarten, first grade wing, losing the bathrooms, and that would be the take Odell, subtract, add that amount to it. Now Odell has some costs that aren't going to be applicable. We're doing road widening to Odell School Road. We're doing. We'll talk later about Highway 73. It's a larger site. So again, we'd have to look at it, but those things are definitely additions that aren't would not be in the Royal Oaks project.
okay. So, and what was the Odell estimate? Best guess?
I think Odell right now, not counting Highway 73, is 20.5.
So roughly add 700 or something or so to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, subtract out the road widenings.
Yeah, it's 20.6, not counting the
20.6.
Highway 73 piece.
So, but the number that you have on this white sheet, you said you had taken the dollars per square foot from the Odell contract and escalated it
Yes.
for a couple of years, was that it?
Yes.
And what was the percentage?
Used
Escalation.
4.5% as a escalation factor.
Per year or for the total
per
for
year.
the 2 years, so.
Per year,
okay.
and I think that when I did that, it was a longer period, than what we're talking about right now. So it would be shortened a little bit from there.
Yes, I believe you used 2018.
Yeah, and I did it mid construction period, so it would come back, from there, and that's what most estimators do. They pick the construction period, they hit the halfway point. So it would be- so it would
So
be
just
less.
kind of picking up on this line of thought, so you said 20.6 for the
Odell base.
Odell 3.5 base. If we said, well, if that was for a K through 5, then you said maybe another 800, 900,000. So let's say 900,000 because that gets us to 21.5. But then we got to multiply that. We got to escalate that by 4.5% for 1 year and 4.5% for a second year. So maybe almost another 10%. So that's another 2 million. So let's say it's 23.5. If you compare that to this, you say, oh, wow, for another, I'm paying $17 million for 400 students. For another $6 million, I could get 800 students. I need this. I'll need another week to give you the answer on your middle question about program. Site, definitely, I agree with Carolyn. It's got to be Royal Oaks, the existing site. And the design team, I agree with you. We should use the Odell architect. If the design was good for Odell, it's good for Royal Oaks. And I'm torn for two things. I'm torn about, well, clearly building something for 400 students is not as cost effective as building one for 800. But when I looked at the data that was presented in the facilities plan, and you say, well, there's not growth in that area, so why make twice as large a school as you need unless you're going to merge one of the other schools in the area into it? And when I think of the Royal Oaks neighborhood, it doesn't seem to be a good fit to then say, well, we're going to take students from the center of Concord and bring them all the way up into the Kannapolis, right on the edge of the boundary of the district. So to me, it seems like it should be, even though it's not going to be cost effective, at least the way I'm thinking right now, it should be a 400 student school. But the numbers that we just cited are like, wow. And the other thought that I have is that I would like, even if you can just do a back of the envelope calculation to say, well, all right, if we try to use that existing K1 wing that has the new roof and was built in 1998, and then built the rest of the school with the Odell plan, is that really going to be a net savings or not? In other words, because we're going to have to sequence the construction, and we probably have to rent a modular classroom, a village, and put it in the playground for a year. But if it is a savings, I just don't see, you brought up at our retreat, Carolyn, that we are no longer offering transportation to our preschool program. And if we're going to make people parents have to drive their children to the preschool, it doesn't make sense to me to put that preschool right on the edge, literally on the edge of our school district. It should be located in the center. And so I agree that the Long School is long overdue for a remodeling or a replacement. But I just don't like the idea of saying, well, we're going to instead move it all the way to Kannapolis.
Dr. Shepard, like to.
In response, I would imagine, and Jason, you might have information on this to support or not, that there are a number of students in the Royal Oaks area who would benefit from preschool services that currently aren't receiving them. So maybe it's not a good idea to solidify the idea of replacing Long, but certainly by opening a preschool center in that community, I think we could meet the needs of those students.
And what, if you don't mind, as we program the school, it could be that we program X number of pre-K classrooms. That's part of the school. The cohort for the school right now at a 400-student school is 3 kindergarten, 3 first grade, 3 second grade, 3 third grade. Maybe we just continue that, and maybe we do 3 or 4 pre-K classrooms. Pre-K is going to have less students than kindergarten. That's something that could just smooth a nice, smooth transition for those students.
Well, one comment I want to make now. That family at Royal Oaks, that's a family unit there. When I say family, that's a very close-knit school there. That Royal, and when I say that, it really is. That they are, when it comes to programs and that school itself, they are very close-knit. It's kind of like the Odell community. When you see that, you got the Odell community, and you see how that survey was. Royal Lakes is really the same way. When you see that, it's a small type thing, but I see that same type of thing. I visit there a lot, and they're very close too. And you start trying to say, oh, we're going to do 2 or 3. I just don't see that, because they are very, what I've seen when I've visited there, they're very, very close-knit too. And I think if you start trying to split them off, I think it would just destroy that. And I wouldn't like to see that. I wouldn't be in favor of it personally.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Mr. Walter?
I think along the lines of what Jeff was talking about, for a smaller portion, a couple more $1 million, you can have an 800-student school. I mean, we spent hours, on Saturday talking about growth. This doesn't address that at all. And these are valuable resources. The county doesn't have unlimited funds. We don't, funds for this, I don't even know where they're coming from. As Mike Downs said, where's the money coming from? So even if we recommend this, they don't have any way to fund it at this particular time. What the voters did say is the voters said, here's $11 million to replace the school at the site. And none of this here says we can do that for $11 million. That puts us in a position, I don't see why we need to be rushing, because at this point there's not any funds available. If we could do it for $11 million, let's figure out a way to do that. But I don't see how we could replace, as you're telling us, with the way the costs have gone. Our study over here talks about it's not just Royal Oaks that has a problem with a school that needs to be replaced. The study said here, priorities here, we have Beverly Hills needs to be replaced. We have Coltrane Webb that needs to be replaced. We have, all these schools here that need to be replaced. And if we're not here, if we can take an advantage possibly of the option, if we're going to replace Royal Oaks anyway, let's do 2 schools instead of 1. We have 2 that need to be replaced that are right adjoining boundaries. The size of the one, Royal Oaks has what? Has 316 students at the moment. Only 240 of those students, is the count that I had, was by the school. The rest of them are way across I-85, all the way up in the north end of county. That's a long way to go to that school. It's currently right on the edge, like we were talking about. If we build a brand new school there at that site, the county, all our county taxpayers pay for the school. Yet the kids that are right next to that school that can walk to that school can't go to that school. That doesn't sound right to me if we're going to replace it at the site. In any event, whatever we do, it's still going to cause some type of a redistrict. That's going to cause issues just to try to fill the school. I don't see the growth of this school, like we said, it's not growing. It's not going to handle growth. Really, the only thing that we could possibly do is take some from Weinkauf. I don't see anywhere else that we're going to handle, we're going to support growth. I think the thing that we need to look at before we decide to spend $17 million on this particular project, would it make sense? Is there land available to make a school that would combine the Beverly Hills and the Royal Oaks? Maybe so. And the preschool center, Beverly Hills would be a wonderful site close to where the other site, Long was. Potentially. I don't know. Again, I'm just throwing these things out, but I think before we decide we're going to spend or dedicate and recommend that all our resources go to this one project, this we've got to deal with this. And we've got Mount Pleasant Middle School that's already further along than this project. So that's probably where the county is going to if they're going to help fund us, that's probably where they're going. So I don't think we need to be rushing through this thing. I think we should take time. If we have $11 million, work on, maybe look for a site and use that money towards the land and work on another bond issue at some point for the project, the replacement school. Those are, again, my thoughts. Sorry to be passionate about it, but again, there's no funding that I can see for the project.
For myself, I just need these options laid out. Just a general statement without a preference one way or the other at this point. I need to see these options explicitly spelled out and compared to one another in the very near future, please.
Okay.
Any other comments, board members? All right. The voters spoke loud and clear without a whole lot of input from us on Royal Oaks. And they voted by an overwhelming majority. And not only did they vote by an overwhelming majority, they outvoted the RCCC bond and exceeded that one by a fair number. And the RCCC bond was actually pushed and advertised and promoted. And we knew that when we went into this bond, and the reason we didn't come out and just push it really hard because it wasn't enough money to take care of the school. The commissioners are fully aware of the situation, and they will have to use the tools that they have available to them to take care of the funding for this school and for Mount Pleasant. They have told us that if we're going to replace Royal Oaks in the very near future, we need to have certain accomplishments by next March. And that is, we need to have a bid in hand so that they can begin to figure out where they're going to get the money and what they're going to do. And they have some other options. They're not handcuffed to the $11 million. In fact, they don't even have to borrow that $11 million if they don't want to, because there are other options available to them. I'm not pretending to be a commissioner, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But this project has three different components to it right now. One is, are we going to locate it on the site that it's located at now? We did talk about possibly looking for another site, but that's going to cost a fair amount of money. It's going to cost some time, and we definitely won't meet the March deadline that they have, for replacing the school. So if we go by the site rules and try to find a site, then we'll be into 2016 before we can ever do a design, because we've got to find the site, we've got to purchase the land, we've got to do geotechnicals on the site. There's a number of things that we have to do before we even purchase the site to make it verifiable to us. So we're going to lose a lot of time going that route. So that'll be a year. Then we have to do the design, and then it'll be another year. So it'll be 2017, 18 before that school will be ready to be moved into. We can accelerate that time date and do something that we promised the people in this community that we were going to do, and I think the commissioners also understood that we promised these folks that we were going to try to do something about their school. It's an old school. We do have one good building on it that is really doing well, and the school is actually dry, so that's a big accomplishment, but at the same time, that school is old. The other thing we have to decide on is this program. And, we've talked about the long preschool and what are we going to do with it, and we know that it's an 100-year-old structure, and we'll have to probably have a more conversation on this later this week. But I think we can make some decisions tonight, at least for the consent agenda. We could make a decision on the site. One of the things that we need is how much would you need, because you don't have any money, to do site work, to do the diligence for the site. So we probably will need by next meeting how much money you think it would cost to do the geotechnicals and the surveys for the site, so we could at least tell the commissioners, because we need to get that on their agenda. As far as the design team, I believe we need the program in place, then we can get the design team started. I think that Mosley Architects has done a wonderful job with what they provided us. Board members, if you remember in the Odell School, we did some energy savings, energy designs on that school, they cost us about $239,000 extra, and it was a 7-year ROI on that. That's a good ROI. That means 43 years after the fact, we were getting return on that investment, and for the life of that school, we will constantly receive that. I don't believe we should go backwards and tax the public and go something lesser, and then for future years, for the next 43 years, the public gets to pay for it, because we were so concerned about the initial cost that we forgot to count the pennies and the dollars that we were going to save. So I've talked to Mr. Burnett about there are some features in the building that we could possibly do some savings on, still not change the overall look of the building, because I believe the Royal Oaks community does deserve a nice school, much similar to the one that's being built over in Odell, and there's no reason why we shouldn't go down that path and make them proud of us and proud of themselves for getting a school that they can be proud of and they can draw together with, because it's been 60 plus years since they had a new school, and I think we should do that due diligence in that way. So, board members, do you want to put this on the action agenda and put the stipulation that we have some cost for the site? And I think that we're going to have some more conversations about this program. Not that that necessarily has to be fully fleshed out by the time we give Mr. Burnett go ahead on the program. I think we can at least tell him we want a core for 400, and that will help get the program design begun, and then we'll have to tell him how much we want in the wings as we go forward. But yes, Ms. Carpenter.
For some of you newer members, I just want to make sure you're aware of that this has been, Royal Oaks has been thrown on the back burner more than one time. These individuals have been promised that you're going to get this school, and then because of funding, it's been jerked off, and they've not gotten it. So every time they turn around, they think they're going to get the school was there, and then because of funding, the commissioner's saying, sorry, you're not going to get funding, we don't have it, and then the school got pulled off. And they thought 5 years ago, they thought, oh, we're going to get the school, and then all funding went away, so they didn't get it. So, again, they overwhelmingly approved this, the $11 million, so, they approved it, and as our chairman stated, it was overwhelmingly passed, and it was, there was no advertising or anything on that bond, and it was approved by the public, that they said, yes, we want that. And I think that the promise should be kept, and that it needs to be done. And I feel like it needs to be done on that site.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Anybody else have any bills or comments that they would like to make at this point? Board members, we'll put this on the action agenda. Do all of you agree with what I suggested as far as getting the costs for the site, the geotechnical and the survey, so that we can talk to the commissioners about some of the initial seed money that we'll need to get started on this? Okay. All right. Let me get back to my... All right, so that's an action agenda. Next, we have the Odell... now we have Mount Pleasant, 4.10. That's the Mount Pleasant Middle School replacement. Mr. Burnett, you're speaking, please.
Yes, thank you. So the superintendent recommends presenting the CD cost estimate and any other project cost estimates deemed appropriate to the Board of County Commissioners at their March meeting cycle. What we talked about at the retreat on the other Saturday was the construction cost estimate that we had received from the third-party construction cost estimator, and that was based off of a DD, design development set of plans. And the number one rule as a construction cost estimator is the estimator never wants to be the low bid. He always wants to be higher than what it's going to come in at. If he comes in and if he's the low bid, that does not do us any favors. It hurts us a great deal. So understand that that's where they're coming in. That's their mindset. Number two, understand that there's a lot of information that it's not complete on a design development set. However, the construction document set will close a lot of those gaps, will provide more information, and the cost estimator won't have to use some rule of thumb numbers or plug in numbers. So we do expect that that the CD estimate will be certainly closer to what the final bid is going to be. When we set up the contracts with the architect on this project, what we specifically asked for was we wanted to do a 60% completion of the CD estimate. When the architect was 60% complete with CDs, he would send those drawings out to a third-party estimator, and we would use that as the basis for the request for the county commissioners for the additional funding. We're still on schedule for that. The architect has released the drawings to the cost estimator. We hope to get those back in about 3 weeks. What we hope to do is, when those are received, to be on the county agenda for the March cycle and present those costs. So we don't plan to present these costs because this is the DD set. We do plan to present the CD cost estimate in 30 days.
All right, board members. So Mr. Burnett has provided us the absolute shocker, and we're hoping that it won't be as bad as it seems it is. So do you have comments, questions that you would like Mr. Burnett to answer at this time? Yes, sir, Dr. Phillips.
Okay, so in the little write-up of the agenda item, it says the DD estimate noted a $31 million construction cost, but when I look at the sheet that you provided us at the retreat, the subtotal for the construction is 32.2, and just the construction line item is 27. So where's the 31 coming from?
Well, we have the the estimate from the estimator did not include construction contingencies. We added construction contingencies. We added any possible right-of-ways that might need to be acquired. Right now, we don't know of any. Hopefully, it remains that way, but we do know some utility work that we're needing to do, and we'll see whether right-of-way is required. And that would make the difference.
So basically, you're not asking us at this moment to bless this number. You're just asking us to give you the role of going to the county commissioners with whatever estimate you come up with next month.
Yes.
And saying, here it is.
Yes.
When did you say that you were anticipating the CD estimate?
3 weeks.
And that would be around the June or February 21st or so?
Yeah, and I don't, do you happen to know, is there a specific date or is?
I don't know the exact date, but that's about right. It's about 3 weeks or less from now.
Okay. All right. All right, board members, do you want to put this on the consent agenda, or would you like this on the action agenda? Action.
And can I ask, have we seen comparable cost estimates across the state for similar schools? Have we already seen good comparisons of prices per square foot for middle schools elsewhere in the state?
Well, NCDPI released, they track construction cost data for schools in North Carolina. In 2014, there were 2 middle schools that bid, and the average of the two was $227 a square foot.
$227 per square foot.
And I don't know anything about those projects, and they're east of here. I've asked the architect for some information on that, the architect of those middle schools. So when we get that, we'll be able to see what the deal is, with that school.
So we don't have much actually to compare to.
Well, unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot of activity. In talking with Todd earlier, he mentioned a project that they're doing in Guilford County, if you don't mind me talking about this. And so that project is further along. It does have a contractor, CMAR, CM at risk, involved with that. And so they're getting that kind of data back. And it's less than what this DD estimate came in per square foot.
I just would like to see some good data if there exists something to really compare it to, if that's possible, please.
Unfortunately, the projects are pretty thin, and so it's pretty tough to make those comparisons. Years in the past, we would have a slew of projects and really have a good feel for where we needed to be. But the thing is, we don't know what we're comparing ourselves to. This district, the county, all have sustainable goals as far as trying to be energy efficient, trying to be the community itself, how the school's fitting in. So we have no idea what the requirements are in other locales. But
well, to state the obvious, we need to pin down this price fairly soon.
And we hope that that's in 3 weeks.
Thank you.
That did not include the stadium work, right?
Correct.
So that's separate in addition to that. And that was for 722, is what you're saying? 722 students?
Yes, and 858 student core.
It's just kind of shocking to see the increase in price on a similar sized school that we built just a few years ago, costing so much more now.
It is.
You're going to have that drop when you talk to the commissioners next month, I'm sure.
All right, board members, I've got this on action item. All right. 4.11, funding for the new Odell. This is the Highway 73 portion that we have not talked about tonight. Mr. Burnett, take it away, please, sir.
Yes. So everyone is familiar with the discussions that had occurred about a possible roundabout in that area. That would be a possible solution for our access, other people's access, and some things that NCDOT was considering for the intersection of Odell School Road and Highway 73. In all likelihood, the roundabout is off the table. I think that some folks had some concerns about its proximity to the Odell School intersection, too close, and that I think the last thing you want to do is to have traffic back into a roundabout because it then doesn't move. It doesn't happen with the traffic signal. Traffic signal is able to stop people and keep the intersection clear, but that won't be the case on the roundabout. And it was also cost prohibitive. So we have been working with the city and have been working with the state, NCDOT. We do have a proposal to them. We've gotten comments back. We've gone back and forth with comments. We do have an estimate from our civil consultant, and this work in addition to curb and gutter, sidewalk, storm drainage requirements, comes to $839,500. And I had just one note, Mr. Walters, I had sent you, and I think that was distributed to the board, and it's on board documents, the construction cost estimate. And that one that I sent out was actually the one that went out it was before I massaged a couple numbers. I don't like having $700,000, $6,100, and so some of those things I removed the $100 and I added $900 here to get things rounded off, so it's $800 off of the number that if you saw those items. So the number that I was recommending is $839,500. And that did include construction contingency. It included professional services. It included other costs, such as NCDOT municipal agreement and a plat for the biocells and the easement dedications. We do think that it is an all-inclusive estimate, and that and we're ready to continue on the journey with the city and the state, and that's this number we feel good will deliver this project, and that we'd be happy to go to the county in the next cycle to request the funds. So the superintendent recommends pursuing the required funding from the county at their March meeting cycle. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Well, are there any questions about the Highway 73? Mr. Waldron?
That's entirely on our property, is that correct?
No. The road widening is certainly going to be within the right-of-way, and that will be off our property. We do have an item. Can I do this, or do you need to do it? There we go. This image does show our property, and I'm not sure if I can describe it to you. But if you see from the, what you're looking at is Highway 73, which is going horizontally. Vertically is Odell School Road, and that's the intersection. If you go 1,500 feet to the west, which is to the left, you'll see a stub drive. That is not on our property. That is on the adjacent property. As the stub drive meets the driveway that goes into our school, you'll see it goes a little ways, and then you'll see a line that's intersecting it. That line is the property line. And to the north of that line, you'll see some very faint parallel lines. That's our property.
So is there any cost sharing involved in this, or is this?
Well, this particular estimate doesn't reflect any of that. It is our intent to negotiate cost sharing, and that we need to be able to enter into agreement and have all the funds covered so that we can enter into the agreement. And anything really that is of benefit and reduces that amount, we'll have to work out with the county. Right now, it doesn't reflect any.
Okay, it's just a drive, it's not a light or anything at the intersection.
At the intersection is a traffic signal. So let me describe what the improvement is. On Highway 73, there will be a left turn lane that we will construct. That means it's a symmetrical widening, so we will go off to the right-hand side with the lane, and that's going to be the pass-through lane. And that's left is going to turn into our property if you're heading west. There's going to be a left turn lane heading into the animal hospital, the vet's clinic that is there. And so there will be widening on the south side of that road, and that will be the pass-through lane for that as well. Then the stub road is, I don't actually remember the dimensions, but in the neighborhood of 350 feet, I believe. And as you see, it terminates, and then you'll see our drive. So the future, the developer, the owner of the property, to our west, you can tie onto that. In all likelihood, they would improve that road and probably have a median and then another pavement section parallel to that. So you'd see 2 or 3 lanes exiting and 1, 2 lanes entering the property. This driveway, it extends over to where we were going to, where we terminate our school construction effort by the current drawings. Ties into that. And in addition, we've got the curb and gutter, we've got sidewalk. That additional impervious surface area, we are taking care of that on our property. And so we do have various storm drainage features that are being enlarged and to take care of those issues.
Okay, so if we don't build this thing, we don't have a way to get in and out of the school from 73, is it?
Currently, that would be that would be correct.
Thanks.
Sir, what's the length of the turn lanes?
Well, that's NCDOT.
And can we double it? I mean, because, and I'm being facetious, but because that area is always so congested, and the longest turn lanes that we could get would still have a lot of demand of cars backed up there all day long.
Well,
we have to be sensitive to the
I
continual growth and needs in that area, and that exact hub right there is always so congested all day long.
Well, we worked hard to minimize the amount of work that needs to be done, and really the turn lanes are serving our need at the moment. Now, when the developer develops his property and adds to the load, that's when the requirement will kick in for longer stacking, storage lanes, and things like that. So consider this phase one, and it's really satisfying our need. And then phase two is when the developer comes in with more traffic, more demand, and that's when all those calculations are redone, and they will have to extend turn lanes and things like that.
Carolyn?
All right, I may be really sounding dumb here, but I'll go ahead and take it. What is a biocell? We're spending a lot of money for whatever it is. We're enlarging it, and then we're doing something else with it, and then we're making a plaque for it, and we're designing it. So what is a biocell?
It's part of the storm drainage design, and it is a feature, where water is drains to it, and then slowly dissipates.
Is it something we gotta have?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why are we making a plaque for it?
It's a requirement.
You gotta make a plaque for it to say
Not a plaque, but a plat. So it'll be recorded with the city.
a plat. Oh, a plaque. I thought it said a plaque.
Why
are we making a plaque for it?
We can name it the Carolyn Carpenter Biocell if you want.
No, I thought it said plaque. Excuse me, I gotta rub my eyes here. I thought it said, why are we making a plaque for it? But so why are we having to enlarge it though?
Because we are increasing the amount of impervious surface area. The road widening, the stub road, our driveway, all of those are extended. Sidewalk, curb and gutter, all of those are added. All of that adds up to more impervious surface area. And that's something that folks are very aware of and very tight on, and that it's trying to treat it. It's an environmental issue.
Okay, thank you.
To control stormwater, the more impervious surface you have, the less Mother Nature gets to take care of it like it always has.
Okay, so looking at the drawing that you have there, if I remember right, sort of the original plans that we were showing for our driveway was that it would come out within our land there, kind of in that area where you pointed out the parallel hashed line.
Yes.
So that's not going to happen in this one. And so that land, which fronts Highway 73, is going to be unused. And it seems to me that it could potentially be a good commercial property. And so should we consider selling that chunk of land to help offset the cost of this?
We specifically designed it so that would be an option.
Excuse me, what would it take to make that happen? As it would be nice to get a little bit of extra cash.
Well, certainly the things I think we would want to look at is what kind of restrictions and things like that we would want to place on it. We have to be very careful, and we have to be careful on the timing. We have to be careful about who goes there and what kind of traffic volume they generate. Because right now, we would be responsible for the road, which is going to serve their property. So really, at the moment, we're hoping to, step one, get this approved and negotiate with the developer because they will be benefiting from this. Step two, finish the project. And step three, take a look at that. Again, work with the county and see but we do want to protect your interest and protect, the school.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Carpenter?
Well, I hate to be questioning. I just want to make sure we're not duplicating, because down here, okay, you're saying additional catch drains and storm drains, and you're showing $12,900, but then you were saying the biosale is for the storm drains. What's the difference between a biosale and the storm drains? Are they not the same things?
Both are storm drainage features, but they are different devices.
So two different things? They're not storm drains?
So the catch basin is going
Well, it's got catch drains and storm drains.
Okay.
But then you go on down there, and then it's talking about the biosales, enlarge and then it says new biosales.
Yes.
And we got all kinds of, and then designing those. So we got additional storm drains. So you're doing the biosales and the storm drains?
Yes.
Okay, because we got 12,900 and then 25,000 for that. So you've got both of them in there?
Yes.
Okay. So it is two different things, though? Boy, you're really confusing me. Okay. All right. I'm going to know more about this than I should know. All right, thank you.
Ms. Carpenter, we would be glad to have you come to one of our construction committee meetings, and we could go through this.
Well,
in
I'll be
tremendous
more than
detail.
happy to. I
Well,
want
let
to
you
know,
when the next
because
one
when
is.
I have somebody approach me in the aluminum foil aisle, that's my favorite place, and they say, well, what did you do out there at Odell with those storm drains and those biosales? I'll be able to answer their questions. And why did I spend $12,900 for them? I'll be able to answer their questions.
I'll be
So
happy.
we can find you at the aluminum foil aisle?
That's correct.
And I'll be happy to take you to the site, and I'll be able to show you.
Show me the difference.
Yes.
Got it.
All right, board members, do you want this on the action agenda? Or do you want to consent?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, let's put it on consent. I hadn't really heard anybody say no. Good job. All right, we've moved on. Now we're at our legislative agenda, and we're moving forward. Board members, I have an amendment that I would like to make to this, so let me take the top.
Take one down and pass it on.
Yeah, take the top and pass it down. I've got your names checked. Everybody's name's checked off on there. So board members, as we go through the legislative agenda, you'll see that you have your attachment there. And I just wanted to ask if there are any questions about what we have on the legislative agenda at this point. Are all of you there? You got it pulled
Well,
up?
the only, the only thing that I would request as an amendment would be where it says NCSBA. I know we took it from the NCSBA legislative agenda. I think we should change that to Cabarrus County Board of Education.
And anybody have disagreement with that? All right.
So there's a couple of places where we have, where it says NCSBA in the second one, school calendar. All right, who did? The last sentence starts with NCSBA, and then the next one, teacher pay, the last sentence starts with NCSBA, and was there another one? No, I think that was it. So it's just
There
those.
was one down toward the bottom.
maybe there was.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I think it was just those. Oh, it's in your amendment here.
Yeah, my amended
Yeah.
document.
So I would say that we would just substitute Cabarrus County's Board of Education. I think it's more appropriate for an elected body to be taking a legislative position than to say that it's the schools that are taking it.
Is this a priority list? Are they listed in order of our priorities, or are they just included if they showed up?
I actually asked Dr. Kirk that question, and he said he just put them on there. He thought he meant to put them in alphabetical order, but he forgot to do that as well. But it just came off the way it came off. So there's no hierarchy to this.
Okay. If we're recommending to the state that they should reduce testing and assessing, I think we also need to look at any county mandated testing and assessing, and to make sure that we are reducing that burden, particularly on elementary teachers, I believe, anywhere that we can. I think it's somewhere, it's a way that we can't give them more money per se, but we can give them some time back, and that may be an area that we need to look at.
I agree with you 100% because our elementary teachers, they do not get as much playing time as our middle and our high schools, and they need what they can get.
But over and above this list, what you're requesting is that the district looks at its testing policies to make sure that we can eliminate any unnecessary testing. Is that what I heard you say? Okay. And Dr. Shepard said they would definitely take a look at that, what he just uttered to me. All right, so the first one was the testing. Do I have any comments on any others?
No, my comment was based on our discussion last week at the retreat, where we talked about we're going to be asking the county commissioners for quite a bit of money. And they were talking to us about how they're restricted on new revenue sources or something to that effect. Is that something we'd like to add on to our list of things that we should be supporting so they can help us fund some of these projects?
Yes, Mr.
Possibly
Harris.
we need a local version of this, but as it is focused on the legislative actions that are potential. So I would urge that we not mix local decisions in this particular document, but if we want to compile a local government, county government agenda, that's possibly doable to catch these other concerns, but to keep this focused on the legislative goals.
Okay. Yeah, I believe right now this is going to be, and I believe we need to shift it to a resolution format rather than just having an agenda item on it, but we should have a little bit of a resolution language on this so that they'll understand our positions. As we noted, we wanted to reduce testing and assessing, and we heard a comment on that. And then on another one of our agenda items was the school calendar, and we would prefer to have a little more flexibility in that area. And there's a lot of verbiage around that. A whole lot more, yes, correct. Teacher pay, and that's a pretty comprehensive one, and we just say, although we commend the General Assembly for the meaningful pay increases to certain groups of teachers in 2014-15, all teachers should be at least at the level they would have been had they been moved up the pay scale since the freeze of 2008. North Carolina's teachers' pay has continually slid in comparison with the region and the country. The new pay scale creates 5-year plateaus that are a great disincentive for teachers to be attracted to and retained in the profession. Master's and advanced degree national board certification supplements are of utmost importance and should be continually funded. NCS, Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education also firmly believes that our teachers should be above national average, thus should be paid above national average as well. You all agree with that? Okay. Teacher,
Well, I just reading that, I think we firmly believe that our teachers are above national average, and this should be paid. There's two should be's, but I don't think they should be. I think they are.
teachers. Okay, Dr. Kirk, would you look at the last sentence on teacher pay? And it says, firmly believes that our teachers are above the national average and thus should be paid. That's how we want it read. Good, clean, good catch. And did you have a big glove on when you did that? All right, teacher assistant funding. And that was the role of a teacher assistant has greatly transformed in recent years with increased education requirements and has become an essential component of student learning in the early years with increased focus on early grades and more attention to reading by the third grade. The assistance in these individuals provide to classroom teachers has become an invaluable part of accomplishing these goals. Not only does funding for teacher assistants need to be increased, they should be allocated by position ratios in K-3 in the same manner as classroom teachers. School districts should maintain the flexibility to spend the money as they see fit. Okay? AF grading. Remember, we talked about this earlier tonight. The 2014 school grades are based upon a split of 80% performance, and we use the word proficiency, so just in case those in our audience don't understand that word. So 80% performance or proficiency / 20% growth and a 15-point scale. The scale is scheduled to become a more restrictive 10-point scale in 2015. School leaders feel that the current grading formula does not accurately reflect the learning in many of our schools. So I would say Cabarrus County school leaders feel that the current grading formula does not accurately reflect the learning in our schools. Okay. The current grading scale will lead to decreased economic activity, including home sales and many across Cabarrus County. The current grading system for schools should be revamped to accurately reflect what is occurring in schools in Cabarrus County and across the state. Several factors that should be considered in rewriting the grade structure are a 50-50 split in performance and growth and making permanent the 2014 15-point grading scale. All right? Dr. Kirk, we can talk a little bit more about those slight revisions. Sales tax refund. From 1998 until 2005, local boards of education were able to provide additional educational opportunities with savings from a sales tax refund. Currently, cities, counties, public universities, charter schools, private schools, and countless other entities receive a sales tax refund or are exempt from ever paying sales tax. If North Carolina's tax code is going to continue to allow some governmental entities and others to not pay sales tax to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, or in the case of Cabarrus County, millions of dollars, then local boards of education should be granted a sales tax exemption or have its sales tax refund reinstated.
Please take out the to the tune of and replace more neutrally with some other phrase.
I'd just say not to pay sales tax of hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't need the to the tune of. Okay. Then, board members, there was one that I would like to add, with your consent. I gave to you this one. North Carolina's Constitution requires the clear proceeds of all civil penalties, fines, and forfeitures collected by state agencies to be distributed to the public schools. In August 2008, a court found that the state has consistently failed to fulfill this constitutional obligation and owes the public schools $747 million in school technology funding. An arrangement for setting the full debt has still not been established. Cabarrus County Schools Board of Education is committed to working with the General Assembly to find an incremental debt repayment method that allows for a fiscally responsible fulfillment of the state's obligation. Just to give you an idea of the ramifications of this, if you were to take 1.5 million students and divide this in here and do a per pupil funding on this, Cabarrus County would get somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 million. So this is a fairly large sum, and I think it's incumbent upon our state representatives to understand that this is actually a debt, and I believe that they need to make good on it if they're going to keep their budgets balanced.
Is it feasible to put a little addendum aside of each of these paragraphs, saying $16 million for Cabarrus County,
Yes.
and quantifying each of these points, how it would pertain to Cabarrus County, or is that just very difficult? Or is that just very difficult to do across this document that we're compiling here?
Ms. Klutz, do you think you could give us an estimate on the
Ballpark.
sales tax? And I think if we could get the curriculum number for the entire state and then divide it out
Extrapolate
to
those
a per
numbers
pupil
somehow.
number, and then extrapolate it to our 30,713 ADM that we now have reported, then I think we could figure out an actual number based on the ADM for this year.
And what about estimating how many D schools we'd have and how many C schools we would have?
Quantify each of these statements
Yes.
locally
Okay.
as much as we can.
And we know we're A.
That's right, girl.
All right,
We know
board
that.
members, we'll put this on the action agenda and we'll try to get this into a resolution, and I'll try to get something out to you later this week so that if you have any more builds on it, we can get that done. Dr. Phillips.
Sure. I'm sorry. I meant to bring something up during the discussion on policies, and I didn't.
Board members, let us regress.
I'm sorry, that's on consent.
All right, it's not, it doesn't have anything to do with the policies that are on here, but yeah, it come to our attention, we got an email from a parents group out in the northwest Cabarrus Middle High School area that they were applying for a grant to help with the continued refurbishment of their track, and they wanted us to agree to match 1-for-1 the funding on the grant. And I just feel it would be good to have an actual written policy. So my question is not, on that specific thing, but how do we get new policies established? Is there a procedure already in place that says, okay, if we want a new policy, we say, the board says, okay, we need a new policy on, matching gifts. And then it goes to the policy committee, and then you come with wording, or what is the way we do that?
I'm happy to talk through, in general, how new policies come to be. Several different avenues. One is the state legislature or the state board of education tells us, thou shall have a policy on this, and one is prepared. Another way is simply, as you said, a board member or a member of administration says, gosh, we should have a policy that looks at this or that. It gets referred to the policy committee. From there, we begin drafting. And we have done that over the years. Magnet School, the recent Magnet School policy is a great example of that. That was a new policy we wrote from scratch. And so if you would like to have something considered by the committee, please let us know what it is, and we will work with you to look at that and talk about the pros and cons and look at proposed language.
One of the things I know, Donna, can you tell us, do we have anything? I know that Parks and Rec, they have matching funds that can be applied for if you want to do something. I know that some of our schools have applied for those, where if they wanted to do a project, they could go to Park and Rec and they could get grants. Do we not have something in place for that? Do you know of anything? Where if somebody wants to do that? And I know we don't have a pot of money out there that we have set aside. Park and Rec, they usually, the commissioners had set aside with Park and Rec, I know they had. Is it 25? And then they would have to set aside so much to do that. Here's our money lady, and she said, we're already looking for 2.6 million.
Right. I just want to give you a little history. Back before our funding was diminished and we weren't having the financial issues that we are having these days, and our needs weren't $250 million on a list that we can't see through, the facilities department did have a informal, very informal, not a board policy, but they did indicate to groups that if they would raise, that they would match up to a certain amount. But what happened with that process is they would submit their information to the facilities department, and they would say, we're going to raise $25,000 and we'd like for you to match it with $25,000. That would still go through the budget process, and the board then would see that as a project, and there would be an indication that the matching funds would be there. So we did have an informal process, and the board was still a part of it. The board made the decisions on which ones we would match or not, but it went through the facilities department budget. So we've never had just a separate allocation for that, to my knowledge.
So can I say that I'd like to see us develop a policy that it lays out what the school board's procedure will be in terms of matching gifts made by groups supporting our athletic facilities.
I believe you can, and I saw your email on it, and a lot of the board members didn't get that specific email, so some of them aren't privy to what you wrote, but I believe that we could use that as the straw model to begin the policy. If the board members here would like to have some type of policy regarding matching grants and how we deal with a little bit of money when our boosters are actually out there working hard to try to augment their facilities.
Oh, we're not implying that we're creating a matching grant program, are we?
No.
Okay, so how we accept money from outside organizations, and then the process of which we determine if we're going to match or not.
Right.
Correct.
What
Okay.
limits we'll put on a match.
Gotcha.
Now, Ms. Boone, you can come help us.
I just wanted to add very quickly, it's not a policy, but we do have grant guidelines, and we ask our schools and organizations in the guidelines that if they're applying for a grant that's more than $10,000, that it has to go through an approval process with the administration from the school, as well as through administration here at the central office. And one of the items that we ask them is if it is a matching grant that they are applying for, if they have the funds already secured to match that grant, so that they aren't encumbering the system or obligating the system to match a grant that they may get from an outside agency. So that is something that we do have in place right now.
Well, yeah, no, that's good to hear, but just to kind of address Vince's concern, what my feeling was, I don't think it's good to have an informal policy like we used to have, because I think it sets groups up for disappointment and may make them feel that we're being arbitrary when we say yes to one and no to another. And I think it would just be a whole lot better if we could have an open discussion, independent of any particular request. It just says, okay, here's how we're going, here's the criteria we're going to look at, and here's how we're going to address it. So that's what I'm proposing, that we have a policy that does that.
If I may, just to get some clarity on this, you're seeking some guidelines and a policy for if we were to establish a process by which we had a pot of money and would provide matching grants, what that would look like, separate and apart from our currently existing process by which we accept gifts that other people want to make to us. Got it.
Are you just going to look at some other places that have that type of thing and kind of come back to us with that? Okay.
copies of that draft proposal were sent on to Sarah or Mark. They may have been, I just don't recall.
I think at this moment, we've just had a general discussion about a non-agenda item, so we have to first.
Yeah.
So we've got to be real careful about where we're going with this. Board members, I would probably need a motion that would at least give Ms. Stone some direction.
Add it on the agenda, then get her to do it.
Yeah. So, should we add it onto the agenda and then make a motion, or can we make a motion without having to go through an
I
agenda?
don't think you need to do either. I think we just know that you want us to take this to the policy committee, and they're going to bring us something back, then y'all can
Oh,
decide
okay.
it.
All right.
We got the message, all right?
Okay.
So we're going to create a policy to tell people that we don't have any money to give them.
Yeah, we don't have any money.
Trust Ms.
So are we
All right.
adding the
No.
1.4.1 to the consent?
Which one was that? 4 point?
Do something with 4.1.
4.12, I asked, Ms. Stone is going to help Mr. Kirk and I put this into a resolution, and we'll put it on the action agenda so we can present it to you in its final format at our next meeting, if that's okay. Unless y'all just want to consent and then trust our language.
We got it.
All right, board members, I think we've gotten to the end. We're in number 5, and you know what that means. I need a motion to adjourn. Mr.
I'll
Harris?
second that.
Wait a minute. Are you?
Just made the motion.
Oh. He's messing me up. No discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Meeting is adjourned.